Hi, welcome to Luna Listens to Books channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. On her wedding day, Clara is betrayed by her husband, Blake, who mentions another woman's name when they say their vows. Devastated and unappreciated, Clara decides to end the marriage and find out who exactly the woman who ruined her life is. As it comes out, Sophia is not just another woman but Blake's long-hidden affair. Trying to get back on her feet and live peacefully with her family, Clara feels there is no way for happiness. Tragedy strikes. Her mother dies, and at the worst possible time, Sophia kills her father. In solitude and grief, Blake returns, begging Clara to give him a second chance. However, Clara must now face an even harsher reality. Can she forgive Blake and rebuild her life? In this turbulent journey, Clara must choose between loving Blake again, seeking revenge, or moving toward the freedom she deserves. Clara Devereux sat in the corner of the living room of the luxurious apartment she shared with Blake Hawthorne, her fiancé of 5 years. Her hand was clutched a cup of tea that had gone cold, but her mind didn't care. Warm or cold, it tasted the same, bland. For weeks, she had felt that something had changed about Blake. The 30-year-old handsome man who used to be attentive and never forgot to reply to her messages was now often late home without explanation. He never returned Clara's messages or picked up her calls anymore. Clara stared at her phone, hesitating to open the photo gallery. There was nothing suspicious there, just portraits of them together, romantic dinners, trips to the beach, and the engagement party celebrated a year ago. However, what happened in the last few days made all those moments feel like a big lie. Clara remembers the incident a week ago when she picked up Blake's phone to check the time. That's when she accidentally read the notification of an incoming message. The sender was S, and the short message broke her heart. "Thank you for a fantastic night. I won't forget you." Since then, Clara felt like their wall of trust was crumbling, although she tried to put her suspicions aside. Blake's behavior only exacerbated her worries. He'd been daydreaming, occasionally smiling while staring at his phone, and Clara knew it wasn't because of his work. It culminated tonight, however, when Blake proudly presented her with a birthday present. A small box with a gold ribbon was placed in front of her. "For you, sweetheart. I wanted to show you how much I love you," Blake said with a smile. Clara opened the box carefully. Inside was a luxury watch, shining with a custom-made elegant design. She touched the surface, relieved that Blake remembered her birthday, even though their relationship had been strained lately. "Thank you, darling," Clara said, feeling touched. However, as she turned the watch over, her eyes were immediately drawn to the engraving on the back. 2 simple words, but enough to break her heart: Sophia Collins. Clara felt her body freeze. She stared at Blake, hoping there was a reasonable explanation for this. However, Blake's smile faded when he saw Clara's expression. "Who is Sophia Collins?" Clara's voice was shaky, but she tried to appear calm. Blake was silent for a few seconds, taking too long to answer a simple question. "It was just a mistake from the watch shop," he said, his voice sounding hurried. "I ordered this watch especially for you. Maybe they got the name wrong." Clara raised an eyebrow, incredulous. "Wrong engraving?" "So, the watch shop randomly decided to write the name Sophia Collins. In fact, you as the buyer are clearly standing in front of it, and it seems like this name engraving is done right then and there. You can wait. Or at least they prepared paper to write the name on. They can't be wrong." Blake let out a long sigh. "Clara, don't make this a big deal. I'll return it and have them fix it." However, Clara wanted more. The watch was tangible proof that someone else was in Blake's life. "Maybe you could start by explaining who Sophia is," Clara said, her voice growing colder. "I told you, I don't know who she is. Don't prolong it." Blake entered the kitchen and opened the cupboards, looking for an excuse to avoid Clara's gaze. Clara clenched her fists, trying to hold back the tears that were about to fall. It wasn't about the watch or the engraved name. It was about all the changes she felt, all the little moments that felt awkward. As if this was a sign that there was another woman in her fiancé's heart. He picked up his phone, thinking of checking again to see if he had missed something. Another message from S appeared on the screen of Blake's phone, lying on the kitchen table. She glanced at Blake, who had his back to her, and quickly picked up the phone. The message read, "I'll be waiting at the usual place. Remember our appointment." Clara felt her chest tighten. Her fingers trembled as she opened the conversation. There was no name other than S. All the previous messages had been deleted, but it was clear that Blake was hiding something from her. "Clara, I told you it was a misunderstanding," Blake suddenly said, turning around. He paused to see Clara holding her cell phone. So, you didn't even bother to change the contact name? Clara asked, looking at him with disappointment. Blake stepped closer, trying to take her phone, but Clara moved away. Don't be like this, Clara. You'll only hurt yourself. Give me back my phone, she said in a tone that sounded like a subtle threat. Who is Sophia Collins? And who is this S? Clara demanded, her voice almost breaking. Blake didn't answer. He just stood there, frozen like a statue. That night, Clara decided to leave the apartment without another word. She went to her best friend Elena's house and spent the night there. Elena tried to calm her down, but Clara knew the only way to find answers was to face Blake again. The next day, she returned to the apartment. Blake had gone to work, but Clara's curiosity made her decide to find out more. She opened Blake's laptop, which was often used for work. With a little effort, she managed to open Blake's email. Hundreds of emails containing business conversations appeared, but one name caught her attention. Sophia Collins. Clara opened the email. Most were formal conversations, but a few felt too personal. I'm glad we could spend time together despite our busy schedules. I hope to see you again soon. Clara bit her lip, trying to contain the anger burning in her chest. Sophia wasn't just an engraving mistake on a watch. Something was between them. Blake was able to make time for Sophia, but not for Clara. When Blake came home that night, Clara was waiting for him. She was sitting on the couch with her watch in her hand and Blake's laptop on the table. I want answers, Blake. Be honest with me, Clara said in a stern tone. Blake looked at his laptop and then at Clara. His face was pale, but he tried to smile. Did you read my email? You left me no choice. Blake took a deep breath and sat down opposite her. Sophia's just an old friend. I'm just helping her through a difficult time. Old friend? A friend who's special enough to get a watch with her name engraved on it? Clara cut in, not wanting to be lied to again. Blake was silent. For the first time, Clara saw the doubt on his face. I don't know how to explain it, Blake finally said. Clara rose to her feet. Then I'll find out for myself. She turned around and walked determinedly towards the door. However, before she could open it, Blake said something that made her stop. Clara, I never wanted to hurt you. But there are things you don't understand. Clara turned her body around, looking at Blake sharply. What don't I understand, Blake? That my fiancé might be having an affair. Blake looked at her but said nothing more. That was enough for Clara. She opened the door and left, leaving Blake alone in the getting colder apartment. Outside, Clara pulled out her cell phone and searched for Sophia Collins. Whatever she found, she knew that her life would never be the same again. On her phone screen, an article appeared. Frowny-faced Sophia Collins, the woman who was the victim of an accident, was found dead on the spot. Clara felt her body go limp. The engraving on the watch, the mysterious messages, and Blake's suddenly changed demeanor felt like pieces of a bigger and much darker puzzle than she had ever imagined. So, that Sophia Collins is dead. Although Clara was informed that Sophia Collins was dead, she had doubts. Moreover, the article was the only one. When Clara searched for other information, she found nothing. Clara was suspicious whether Sophia was dead, or if she was still alive and in an unknown place. Clara wants to cancel her marriage with Blake because he has betrayed her. Whatever the reason, Clara cannot accept Blake again because Blake could repeat the same mistake. However, Blake continues to persuade Clara to stay married to Blake, and he promises that Blake will change. A few days before the wedding, Blake was no longer cold and always had time for Clara. So Clara changed her mind. After all, Clara's parents wanted to see Clara get married, especially her mother, who had heart disease, who wanted to see Clara get married before she died. Both of their faces looked happy on the wedding day. It was supposed to be the happiest day of Clara's life. She stood in the church's dressing room wearing a shimmering white wedding dress with a beautiful flowing veil. However, there was an odd feeling in her chest. Since the incident with the watch and Sophia's name, Clara no longer felt confident about her decision to marry Blake. She kept hesitating. Clara, you look like an angel. Elena, her best friend and bridesmaid, tried to comfort her. Clara smiled a little, but her heart was still in doubt, although she tried to convince herself that Blake had explained everything. The memories of Sophia's emails and messages couldn't be forgotten. Even the night before the wedding, Blake seemed to leave their apartment in a hurry for no apparent reason. I am still trying to figure out what happened. I don't know, Elena, Clara finally confessed. I should feel happy today, but something keeps bothering me. Elena took Clara's hand. If you're not sure, Clara, you don't have to do it. Marriage isn't something you can force. Clara nodded, but the church doorbell was already ringing. Time to walk to the altar. With a heavy sigh, she decided to go ahead with this wedding. Blake stood at the altar with a nervous smile. The guests looked at Clara as she walked gracefully up the stairs. However, something in Blake's eyes made Clara feel even more uncomfortable. When they finally stood face to face, Blake touched Clara's hand. "You look marvelous," he said softly. The priest began to read the opening prayer, followed by the wedding vows. Clara tried to ignore the strange feeling that crept into her heart. "Blake Hawthorne," the minister said, "do you take Clara Devereux to be your wife, to love and honor her in joy and sorrow until death do you part?" Blake looked at Clara, smiling a little, but something unexpected happened when he opened his mouth to speak. "I do, Sophia." Silence. All eyes were on Blake. Clara stared at Blake with her mouth half open, unable to believe what she had just heard. "What did you say?" whispered Clara, her voice barely audible. Blake fell silent. His face paled, but he tried to be evasive. I misspoke. I mean Clara." But it was too late. Clara felt the world come crashing down. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held her head up. She would not be a publicly humiliated woman without defending her dignity. "No," Clara said firmly. "I can't marry someone who isn't even sure who he wants to be." The priest tried to calm the situation, but Clara had already decided. She took off the veil on her head, handed it to Elena, and walked out of the church without looking back. "Clara, stop." 25-year-old Clara stopped when she heard her mother's voice. "It's your wedding day. Why are you running away?" Clara's mother, Jessica, asked. "Mama, Blake just mentioned another woman on our wedding day," Clara replied, holding back tears. "Clara, maybe Blake wasn't concentrating. You have to understand, maybe he's nervous. Go back to the wedding." Clara greatly respected her parents, but didn't want to obey this time. "Sorry, Papa, Mama, I can't." Clara ran away. A few days after the annulment, Clara shut herself in Elena's apartment. Her phone was full of messages from family, friends, and Blake himself, but she ignored them all. "He messed everything up," Clara said to Elena, sitting beside her on the couch. "I might have been able to forgive his previous mistakes, but this has gone too far." Elena nodded. "You made the right decision. No one wants to be treated like that, Clara." However, while Clara tried to put her mind at ease, an anonymous message arrived on her cell phone. It was a video link with the words, "Watch this. You deserve to know." Hesitantly, Clara clicked on the link. The video began to play, showing Blake sitting in a fancy restaurant. In front of him was a beautiful woman with long brown hair who smiled as she touched Blake's hand. Clara held her breath as the woman's face became more apparent. It was Sophia Collins. Although Clara had never met her, a photo of Sophia Collins appeared in an article from that time. Clara was sure she was not mistaken. The video didn't stop there. The footage showed Blake and Sophia kissing before leaving the restaurant together. Clara held her cell phone tightly, trying to contain the anger in her chest. "Elena!" Clara called, her voice shaking. Elena came closer and looked at Clara's phone screen. "Oh my God. It's really him, isn't it, Blake with Sophia?" Clara nodded, finding it difficult to speak. The video was clear proof that Blake had been lying all along, all her lies, attempts to believe her husband, and deceit. "I have to get over him," Clara said finally. "I can't keep living like this. Blake is not a good man." Elena hugged Clara tightly. "You're right. You deserve someone much better than him." However, Clara knew that it wasn't over yet. Even though she had left Blake, some questions continued to haunt her. Who is Sophia Collins? Why did she die? Is she dead? Who does this anonymous number belong to? And what is Blake hiding about their relationship? Clara is determined to find the answers, no matter what it takes. Clara immediately dialed the number. Getting the number's owner to pick up Clara's phone 10 times took a lot of work. "Who are you? Why did you send that video to me? Are you Sophia Collins or someone she sent?" Clara asked without preamble. There was silence, only the sound of breathing. "Hello, answer my question," she demanded. Her voice was loud. "If you want to know, please come to your apartment." "Huh?" Clara looked confused. Her body was tense, just as she was about to ask another question. The call was cut off. Clara didn't understand but followed her heart and returned to her apartment. "Elena, I'm going back to the apartment first," Clara said, approaching Elena, who was sitting on the sofa. Elena spontaneously stood up and approached Clara. "What does that mean, Clara? Do you want to meet Blake?" Elena asked. "No." Clara's heart was sure that the traitorous man was there. "I have something to take care of." "I'll be back," said Clara. "All right, Clara. Be careful. If there's anything, let me know." Elena looked anxious to let go of her best friend. Clara smiled slightly. She walked quickly to the garage and took out the car, she drove straight to her apartment. Arriving at the apartment that had not been occupied for a long time, the atmosphere was no different. Clara stepped slowly and cautiously, looking around. Clara didn't want to be trapped if it turned out that someone had set a trap in her apartment. Clara stopped when she heard laughter coming from one of the rooms, listened more clearly, and the laughter became increasingly audible as Clara approached one of the room doors. Clara stopped right in front of the door. "You can't be too mean to Clara. I've had enough of her. She's unattractive and very dull. I remember when we ate at the cafe, she couldn't even use a knife and fork to eat the steak. She's really a country girl. Very different from you, Sophia." "Blake, what do you mean by that? You're beautiful, attractive, and high class. There are so many women who want you. All the men are lining up. So, are you saying you want to marry me and leave Clara?" Sophia asked. "I'll stay married to Clara. After all, no one wants her. She should be grateful to have a handsome and rich future husband like me. But we're still doing this secretly behind her back," Blake said. "That's the same as you betraying Clara, Blake. It doesn't matter. We still have feelings, right? You still love me, and so do I. I just feel sorry for Clara if she doesn't. I'd just feel sorry for Clara if I left her, especially since she's madly in love with me," Blake said. "I'm glad we can still be like this." Clara cried as she listened to their conversation. Sophia and Blake were inside. So what the messenger meant was this. For me to see them together? Thought Clara. Clara broke the door with all her might, catching them on the bed. Clara's eyes burned as she saw them not only chatting, but not even wearing any clothes. "How could you, Blake? I've heard everything. That country girl you're talking about is me, and I definitely don't want to be married to you anymore," Clara shouted. Blake and Sophia looked surprised at my arrival. Blake hurriedly put on his clothes. "Clara, it's not what you think. You misunderstood. There's nothing between us." Clara walked over, raised a hand, and slapped it, her sharp voice echoing like the final payment for a futile relationship. "Don't lie. I've heard it all. No one believes you. If you were a real man, you wouldn't play with women's hearts," Clara shouted. Clara stared hatefully at Sophia, who violently wiped away tears. Then Clara took out a ring from her bag and threw it at Sophia. The ring fell right on the white blanket covering Sophia's body. "That ring, you deserve it more. You two are the perfect couple. I hope you'll always be happy together." "What a traitorous couple. Wait, Clara, if you cancel our wedding, who would want a girl like you, huh?" Blake quipped. Clara gave Blake a sharp look. "I'd rather be with no one than with a man who isn't one woman enough." "Okay, I admit I do still love Sophia." In the end, Blake admitted. It broke Clara's heart to hear it. "So, have you ever had a serious relationship?" Clara asked. "Yes, we were ex-lovers. I broke up with Blake because I wanted to continue my career abroad. Blake didn't want to be in a long-distance relationship," Sophia said. Clara was silent. She didn't know when Blake and Sophia had been in a relationship, and Blake never told her either. "So, when you were with me, you were in a relationship with Sophia, Blake?" asked Clara. "No, I wasn't. After we broke up," Blake replied. "Sophia, aren't you dead? Why would an article say that?" "Are you still alive?" asked Clara, something that made her curious. "Yes, I was alive and have now returned. I was in a coma because of an accident, and the media made the news that I was dead. But I finally regained consciousness and was healthy until now. And I don't want the media to cover my news anymore. I paid them to keep quiet," Sophia said. Clara held the car keys tightly in her hand. No wonder Clara didn't find any more news about Sophia. Now, everything was clear. "Let's end this relationship, Blake," Clara had decided. The old Clara would immediately apologize, begging her not to break up with Blake. Clara had dreamed of being Blake's wife for years, standing proudly by his side at the altar. Now, however, Clara understood, marriage cannot bind a man who loves two women. A wedding will not magically make two people who do not love each other happy. Clara was never able to tell Blake that her mother had a disease because Blake was always busy and never had time to talk to Clara. Now their relationship has run aground. Chaos erupts when reporters appear out of nowhere, hungry for a scandal. Clara turns around and walks out of the charade. Clara can hear Blake screaming in the distance as she slams the apartment door, but she doesn't look back. When Clara got into the car, news of the humiliating wedding cancellation trended online, and many people sympathized with Clara, the rejected bride. However, Blake quickly paid to have the news removed. Clara couldn't stop crying and hitting the steering wheel throughout the trip. She yelled, "You're evil, Blake. I'd better go back to my village," Clara thought. Clara said goodbye to Elena, saying she was going to the village, leaving this city that had hurt her so much. Clara wanted to remember Blake and all the problems here. Despite her heavy heart, Elena supported her best friend's decision. Tickets in hand and belongings packed, Clara was ready to live a new life without Blake. A wave of peace washed over her as she passed through the familiar streets of Clara's small town. There were no skyscrapers or busy intersections, just the quiet hum of everyday life. It felt so simple, and Clara could finally breathe a sigh of relief. It was so peaceful, contrasting to the noise Clara thought in the big city. Clara chuckled as she remembered Blake once sneering, asking what was so great about a small town. It was so boring, she said, but here, in the middle of the quiet streets, Clara could find comfort. Clara finally arrived home, standing in front of the wooden door of her childhood home. An incredible country breeze brushed her face, carrying the scent of the wet earth after the rain. The house looked warm and straightforward as the last time she saw it, with vines decorating the small fence in front. Inside, he knew his papa and mama were waiting, strong parents who had always been his primary support. After everything that happened with Blake, Clara felt this was the only place that could help her heal. Life in the big city had given her dreams and ambitions, but also left deep scars. She needed time, space, and love from her family to rediscover herself. Clara knocked gently on the door before entering. "Papa, Mama? I'm home." Footsteps sounded from the direction of the kitchen. Her mama appeared with a gentle smile, though her face looked older and tired than Clara remembered. "Clara, darling." Her mama hugged her tightly, her body petite but muscular. "I didn't think you'd be home so soon. I'm so glad you're here." Clara smiled, though her heart ached a little. She knew her mama was trying to hide her health, but the signs were clear. Shortness of breath, dark circles under her eyes, and a slower pace. Clara felt guilty for focusing on her life for so long and forgetting about her family. "I'll stay for a while, Ma. I want to take care of Mama," Clara said. Her mama chuckled. "You don't need care, sweetie. I just want to see you happy. But if you're here, I won't refuse your help." Clara decided not to tell her mama the real reason she was coming home. Not now. Blake's wounds were still too fresh, and she didn't want to burden her mama with the story of her failure. Clara was invited to come inside and rest while her mama cooked. She said she would call Clara when the food was ready. An hour later, Clara, who had just woken up, released the fatigue that had been afflicting her. Clara's mother entered the room and invited Clara to eat together. "Honey, come on, the food is ready." Clara smiled and got up excitedly. The dining table was filled with all of Clara's favorite foods. Clara saw milk and cheese, her favorite foods and drinks she hadn't touched in years. Clara grew up with that cheese and dairy, but Clara left it behind for Blake, who preferred something other than pungent, smelling food and drinks. Clara was willing to leave him to sacrifice her love for Blake. However, Blake himself betrayed her love. After cleaning up the dishes, Clara looked stuffed. Papa Clara laughed, teasing Clara for never changing her habits. However, his voice was soft as he spoke. "Wouldn't it be nice if we could stay like this forever? You look happy. If we could turn back time, I would do anything to see you grow into a strong woman. Papa would keep a close eye on you 24 hours a day because you can be careless at times. You deserve someone who will stay with you, protect you, and love you unconditionally," said Papa Clara. Clara's cheeks turned red as he turned away to wipe away her tears. Gently, he touched her head, his voice soft and full of warmth. "Want to stay here for a long time? Remind Papa 2 days before you go home, okay? Mama will cook your favorite food to take home." Clara looked at him and nodded. "No, Papa. I'm not going back. I want to be here, living with Mama and Papa." Mama did not ask why Blake was not with Clara, nor did she question Clara's sudden change of heart. She just held Clara's hand tightly, her gaze steady and reassuring. "I'm glad you're staying. That way, we don't have to keep looking at pictures of you because we miss you." Her parents' concern deeply moved Clara. Clara's spirit of life rose again. The days in the village passed quietly. Clara spent time helping her mama in their small garden. Clara spent time cooking in the simple kitchen and walking around the town full of memories. In every corner, she found a part of herself that she had forgotten while living in the city. However, her nights remained filled with nightmares. Clara often wakes up with a pounding in her chest, remembering when Blake said Sophia's name at the altar, or when she saw firsthand the moment their togetherness shattered her trust. She tried to distract herself with daytime activities, but the images continued to haunt her. One evening, her mother joined her as she sat on the front porch with a hot cup of tea. "You look troubled, Clara," her mother said. "What happened?" she asked. Clara looked at her mother quizzically. Should she tell her everything? I'm just tired, Mama, Clara finally replied. Tired of life in the city with all the lies and games. Her mama took Clara's hand. Sometimes the outside world can be very harsh, Clara. But you always have a place here. You know that, right? Clara nodded, but her tears began to flow. She finally told her everything, from Blake to Sophia to the wedding annulment. Her mama listened without interrupting, only occasionally rubbing Clara's back gently. Honey, her mother said after Clara finished telling her story. You've made the right decision. No one deserves to live with lies, pain, and betrayal. I know it's hard, but you'll be stronger for it than you would have been had you lived your life with him only to be tormented and regretful in the end. Those words, though simple, brought Clara a sense of relief. The morning breeze in the village where Clara had grown up was fresh and soothing. After weeks there, she began to feel like herself again. Her family home, an old building with wooden walls and a flower garden filled with the scent of roses, was a refuge from Blake's bad memories. Every step in the courtyard seemed to cleanse the wounds in her heart bit by bit. But that didn't mean everything was easy. Every day felt like a battle to brush off the little voices in her head that questioned her big decision. Leaving Blake. On quiet nights, when there was only the sound of crickets and the wind rustling the trees. Clara's days are filled with simple but meaningful activities. She helps her parents cook, tends the garden, and most importantly looks after her mother's deteriorating health due to heart disease. Clara also started writing in a small journal, something she used to do when she felt lost. Writing helped Clara reflect on her life journey. Every word she poured into the book reminded her that she had the strength to persevere, even when life threw her a curveball. I am no longer the same woman, Clara wrote one night. I am no longer someone who depends on others to feel worthy. I am me, and that's enough. I won't hold on to something that makes me sick. It became a mantra that she repeated whenever doubts arose. Clara let out a long breath. She remembered dreaming last night. Dreaming of Blake, dreaming about him professing his love in a garden full of love-shaped flowers. A small fountain and a serene violin were playing, lulling Clara into that moment. Blake's eyes sparkled with love as he confessed his feelings to Clara. He talked about lifelong love and how two people are destined to be together. Clara, who had feelings for Blake, accepted his feelings. However, it was all just a shattered dream. In reality, Blake was cheating on her, and all his words were fake. One morning, Clara decided to take a walk to the traditional market. She enjoyed the simple interactions with the vendors, the smell of spices, and the laughter of the children playing around. That day, she felt free for the first time in a long time. As the afternoon approached, Clara received a phone call from an unknown number. Clara rejected it once, twice, but it kept ringing. Clara had already guessed who the caller was, and when she finally answered, her suspicions were confirmed. Blake's voice sounded sharp and frustrated, almost like he was angry on the phone. At first, she hesitated to answer, but curiosity overcame her caution. Hello? Clara's voice sounded firm despite the slight tremor. Clara, I'm still doing you a favor, and this is the last time I'm giving you a chance, Blake said vehemently. If you don't want to continue our marriage, I can't promise you won't lose your position as Mrs. Hawthorne. I won't persuade you next time, and when you beg to have me back, I won't. Clara couldn't help but laugh at the silliness. What was so special about that title? Did she think it would make Clara happy? Blake, you're overconfident, Clara replied, keeping her tone steady. I thought I made that clear. I don't want you anymore. For however many years it's been, and how long it's going to be, I don't want anything to do with you. We're done. And you can give that stupid title to whoever you want. Maybe Sophia. I don't want it, please leave and don't bother. My life is already better without you. Blake's voice was getting louder as if she was sure Clara was pretending. Stop being so stubborn. Don't be so arrogant. No man will ever want to be with you, Clara. Hearing that, Clara's heart raced with anger. Clara closed her eyes, trying to calm herself down. All this time, she knew how much effort she had put into being around Blake, but he had brought her to the bottom of the pit. He was the most evil person Clara had ever known. Blake, I don't care, and it's none of your business either. All the sacrifices I made for you, you wasted. You let that woman replace me. Little by little my feelings disappeared. Be happy with the woman you chose, and that woman is not me. The phone was silent for a moment. The only sound heard was the heavy breathing from the other end. She was at a loss for words. I'm not stupid, Blake, and I can't be played any way you want. I love you with all my heart, but this is your payback. Trampling on my feelings. When I said I was done, I meant it. I don't love you anymore. It's over. On the other end of the line, Blake's breathing became heavy, and he stammered, as if he didn't know what to say. Clara had no patience. She hung up and immediately blocked his number. As far as Clara was concerned, Blake was just a part of her past now, someone who no longer had any effect on Clara's future. Over the next few days, Clara enjoyed time with her parents, and they strolled around the quaint little town. The days passed full of fun and comfort. During the day, they ate together. They walked through the bustling markets in the evenings, eating whatever looked good. Clara wore only flip-flops, a t-shirt, and shorts, feeling relaxed and comfortable, but she still looked beautiful. For the first time in a long time, Clara felt like she could be herself, no longer a surrogate woman for Blake. Clara could smile carefree now. "Papa is happy to see you happy," Papa Clara said. Clara nodded. "Thank you very much, Papa, Mama. Thanks to you, Clara can slowly heal from the past," said Clara. "Yes, dear. You are our only child, so I don't want you to keep crying because of a man," Clara's mother replied, smiling slightly. Clara's cheeks blushed red. She realized that even without the love of a partner, Clara would be fine as long as there was love from her parents. On the third day, Clara planned to take a trip to Japan. As they were getting ready to leave, Clara's mother suddenly fainted, causing Clara and her father to panic. "Mama, why?" Clara asked, shaking her mama's body. Clara was so scared, she was already crying, afraid that her mama was gone forever because of the disease she had suffered for 5 years. "Mama!" Clara shouted again. "Clara, now let's take Mama to the hospital." Clara's papa was so worried, he immediately lifted his wife's body and carried her to the car. They were soon on their way to the hospital. Clara couldn't stop crying for her mommy on her lap. Meanwhile, Clara's papa remained focused on driving, fighting the fear and sadness within him. "Hang in there, Mama." As the car stopped in front of the hospital door, Clara immediately jumped out in a panic. Quickly, she followed in the footsteps of her father, who had already run inside carrying her unconscious mother's body. She could feel her heartbeat buzzing loudly as if it wouldn't stop. Clara ran on trembling legs, her mouth locked tight. No words could come out, only tears welled up. "Papa!" Clara's voice choked as she finally reached the emergency room. She wanted to go in and be by Mama's side, but her legs felt heavy. "Clara, wait here. Papa will take care of it," Clara's papa said in a firm voice, though there was a rumble of fear that could not be hidden. "But, Pa, Clara wants to go inside." Clara's pleading voice sounded hoarse. "No, Clara. You just wait here, okay," Papa said. Clara nodded weakly, standing before the tightly closed door while her father entered and disappeared behind it. At that moment, Clara felt alone, as if her entire existence was empty without her mother. Time passed very slowly. Minute after minute felt like hours. Clara sat in the waiting chair with her body stiff and eyes closed tightly, trying to calm herself and believe everything would be okay. But her mind kept being filled with images of her mother's limp face. She couldn't stop picturing her mother's bright, smiling face, but now she looked pale and lifeless. Why did everything change so quickly? Why now, when we were just planning our happiness? Clara was utterly unsettled, waiting for how long it took for Papa and the doctor to come out of the room to give the news. Clara was seen pacing back and forth in front of the emergency room door as she prayed endlessly for her mama's recovery. Suddenly, the emergency room door opened, and a doctor came out. Clara immediately approached, even though her body felt exhausted. "Doctor, what about Mama?" Her voice was almost inaudible, swallowed by a deep sense of sadness. Clara was anxious. Mixed. With fear, she waited for the doctor's response. The doctor took a deep breath and stepped closer. His face was flat, but his eyes showed deep sympathy. "I'm sorry." The doctor let out a long breath. "We tried our best. However, your Mama cannot be saved. Your mother is lifeless." The words hit Clara hard. Her heart seemed to stop beating. All sounds disappeared and all feelings froze. What had the doctor just said? She felt as if the world was collapsing around her. "Mama! Mama is dead. No, this can't be." Clara stared blankly at the doctor's face, unable to believe what she had just heard. Papa Clara came out of the emergency room with shuffling steps. His eyes were red, full of tears that wouldn't stop flowing. Clara couldn't say anything. She could only stare at her father blankly, not knowing what to do or say. Papa immediately hugged Clara tightly, dropped his head on Clara's head, shedding all the tears that could no longer be held back. Clara's body shook even more. Her papa's cries dismissed all of Clara's beliefs that her mother was still alive. "Papa! Mama!" Clara finally made a sound, although it sounded fragile. Her tears broke, and her voice became hoarse. "What happened to Mama?" There's no way she left us for good, right? Tell me, Papa. That what the doctor said was wrong. Clara's father bit his lip, breaking the embrace, trying to hold back the tears that were breaking out. Clara, your mama has fought very hard. But it's time for her to go. She doesn't feel pain anymore. Clara could only cry, her body trembling as if she had lost all strength. She felt the world was dark, and nothing could illuminate her path anymore. The mama who was always there, who always comforted her in her grief, who always supported her every dream and hope was now gone. No way! You're all lying! Clara screamed in front of the doctor and her father's faces. Calm down, Clara. Her father tried to calm Clara down and caught Clara's body, which almost fainted. What should we do, Dad? Clara whispered as if talking to herself. Clara's papa took a deep breath. We must be sincere, dear. We must be strong. For Mama to be at peace in heaven. However, those words were not enough to calm Clara's heart. She felt crushed by a huge burden. As a child, she was never ready to lose her parents, especially a mama who had always been her protector and source of strength. Clara felt shattered as if everything she knew had changed in an instant. All the memories of her mama started to come back to mind, the times when her mama took care of her when she was sick, the times they talked together, the times they laughed together. All those memories felt so precious. However, now everything was just a memory. Mama! Forgive Clara. Clara sobbed. She missed her mother's gentle touch, the warm smile that always calmed her. Why was there no chance to say goodbye? Meanwhile, Papa Clara remained faithfully by her daughter's side, who looked so fragile. He was busy informing the rest of his family via his cell phone that Jessica had passed away. Jessica had been suffering from an illness, but to lose someone so precious in life, no one would want to. After a while, Clara asked the doctor for permission to go in and see her lifeless mama. Papa Clara looked at Clara blankly, his body tired and broken. Clara, are you sure? He asked softly. Clara just nodded. With sluggish steps, she stepped into the infirmary, where her mother's body lay on the bed, her face looking pale and lifeless. Clara approached and held her mother's cold hands. Mama! Mama, please wake up. Don't leave Clara. Clara whispered, her voice hopeful, though she knew it was futile. Her eyes couldn't stop streaming with tears. Her hand clasped Jessica's stiff one, trying to feel the warmth that had gone missing. The hand felt cold. Why did Mama leave so soon? Why can't we have more time together? Clara stared at her mother's serene face, trying to find some sign that her mother would open her eyes and hug her again. But there was no response. All there was an eerie silence. Clara bowed her head, tears welling up. She was devastated and blamed God for taking her mama's life when she wanted to be entirely devoted to Jessica. Mama! Clara's screams and cries echoed through the room. Every word she wanted to say to her mama was now buried, unable to come out. All the pain was eating away at her. I love you, Mama, Clara whispered, hoping her mama could hear. But there was no answer. The world seemed to stop, and Clara felt trapped in an endless sea of sadness. Clara's cries grew louder and louder, like the rain that never stopped. Every breath was heavy, as if the world was too big and dark for someone who had just lost the most essential part of her life. Her mother, the person who was always there for Clara, was no longer there, and Clara didn't know how to continue living without the mama who had been protecting her. After several hours of silence, Clara's mother's body was finally brought to the funeral home. The funeral home door opened, and the atmosphere became more crowded. Many people came to offer their condolences, from distant relatives to Clara's friends who seemed devastated by her passing. Clara sat in the corner of the room, her body weak and her heart broken. Her tears continued to flow without stopping. Beside her, her father tried to be strong, although it was clear that his heart was also breaking into pieces. The atmosphere in the funeral home was filled with chest-clenching sadness. People came by, speaking softly, whispering sympathetically, but Clara couldn't respond. All their words felt empty, unable to heal the sadness inside her. She just wanted to go back to the days when Jessica was still around, when she felt safe and protected. The best place for stories was her mama. After some time, the motorcade carrying Clara's mother's body to the cemetery arrived. Outside the car, the sky was overcast, and a slow drizzle of rain began to fall. The atmosphere at the graveyard was somber, with people dressed in black standing around the grave. Clara walked along as her mother's coffin was slowly lowered into the ground. Clara's heart was breaking, but she kept walking with heavy steps. Every second that passed, the deeper she felt the overwhelming loss. Mama! Clara's tears broke out again. She looked down at her mother's coffin, which was covered in dirt, and her tears became even more intense. Clara couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She felt like she was entangled in such a bitter reality. Everything felt so fast, so real, and she didn't know how to move on after this. She wanted to scream, wanted to stop everything, but all she felt was emptiness. "Mama, why did you leave us so soon?" Clara asked softly. The raindrops began to fall harder and harder. However, in the midst of the suffocating sadness, suddenly hurried steps came from the direction of the cemetery entrance. Everyone present turned around, and Clara straightened her head, turning to the source of the sound. "Sophia?" Clara was surprised to see the woman coming to the cemetery, and even more surprised to see Sophia's angry expression. Sophia ran towards Clara and the others without caring about the ongoing atmosphere. "Clara, you deserve a life of suffering. It's even better if you just die. Follow your mama," Sophia shouted, a voice full of hatred echoing in the already sorrowful air. Everyone around the cemetery was silent, confused by Sophia's sudden arrival. They exchanged glances, not knowing what was going on. Clara could only look at Sophia with a dumbfounded look. What was going on with that woman? Why did she come and scream like that at her mother's funeral? And how did Sophia know that Clara was here? All she felt right now was confusion. She didn't know what to say or do. Sophia continued to approach, looking at Clara with angry eyes. "You ruined my life, Clara. All of this happened because of you." Sophia's voice grew louder and more cursing. Clara's patience was running out. She didn't think she had done anything wrong, but Sophia accused her out of the blue. When Clara was already in a bad mood, Sophia added to Clara's burden. "What do you mean by saying that?" Clara asked in a louder voice than Sophia. Both of them became the center of attention. They could feel the tension between Sophia and Clara. Papa Clara, who didn't know anything, looked confused and worried. "Clara, what's going on?" he asked. Sophia glanced at Clara's father, and then looked at Clara sharply. "Blake still wants to come back to you. I can't accept that. You don't deserve to be happy, Clara," Sophia shouted. Clara was silent, confused, and angry at such a cruel accusation. "What do you mean?" Clara replied hoarsely, her body trembling. "I have nothing to do with Blake. It's none of my business, Sophia." Clara felt herself getting cornered and attacked by the hateful Sophia. "Don't blame me for everything that happened. I don't want to know what happened between you. Besides, I didn't do anything. I don't want Blake anymore." However, Sophia didn't care. She moved closer, staring at Clara with reddened eyes. "You ruined everything." Sophia growled. "You made Blake choose you. Everything that happened is your fault, Clara." Sophia continued to yell at Clara in a high tone. Clara didn't understand why Sophia was talking like that. Indeed, after deciding to live away from Blake, the man was still trying to get close to Clara again. However, Clara stayed away, and Clara suspected that something had happened between their relationship. "Stop, Sophia, you can't blame me. If you really have a problem with Blake, settle things between the two of you. Not here. Leave, you're ruining my mom's funeral." The dispute escalated. Sophia, filled with anger and jealousy, ran and attacked Clara. Clara fought back, protecting herself from Sophia's uncontrollable attacks, trying to hit and slap Clara. Suddenly, a flash of metal appeared in Sophia's hand, something that glistened under the dim light of the funeral sky. It was a knife that Sophia had just removed from under her shirt, the sharp object hidden there since Sophia's arrival. "You're dead, Clara." Sophia swung the knife, about to stab Clara. Clara's eyes rounded, and her body tensed as the knife came closer. The atmosphere at the funeral became tense as people screamed in terror at Sophia's horrific act. "Look out!" Papa Clara shouted, breaking the silence. But it was too late. The knife was already plunged. "Papa!" Clara's scream echoed, breaking the eerie silence that her father's screams had just broken. Fresh blood soaked the burial ground. The knife, embedded in the back of Clara's papa, the man who had bravely stood in front of Clara, deflecting the attack aimed at his daughter, pushing Clara back to protect her. Before her body could collapse, Papa gave his daughter a glimpse of a smile and left Clara standing limp, her body shaking violently. Her cries echoed, sad and heartbreaking, when she saw her father lying bloodied on the ground. Around them, people screamed hysterically, their faces filled with panic and horror. Clara screamed again, calling out for her father. It happened so fast that Clara was helped by her father without her father having time to dodge Sophia's attack. Clara didn't want this to happen. She didn't want to sacrifice her father. Sophia, eyes perfectly rounded, was rooted to the spot, her face deathly pale. Her hands were shaking. her gaze glued to the body of Clara's papa that she had killed, and the knife still stuck there. Sophia looked at her bloodied hands. No, no, I didn't kill him. Sophia's lips twitched, and her frightened face showed clearly. Papa, Clara cried out, her voice full of panic, trying to crawl over. Her eyes were teary, and her heart was breaking. Papa, wake up! Please wake up! They ran over, some screaming in panic, while others could do nothing. Clara was crying her eyes out. Papa! Wake up, Papa! Help! Clara kept calling out, but there was no answer. She rested her papa's head on her thigh. Clara looked up, gave Sophia a sharp look, and said, You're a murderer. Sophia shook her head quickly. No, no, I didn't kill him. Sophia was shaking so much from panic that she was stammering. Amidst the chaos, someone stood behind a large tree, watching intently. His eyes were sharp, and his hand held a cell phone, recording everything that had happened. The person then picked up his cell phone and pressed a few buttons. Hello, police officer. There has been a murder here. Come immediately and prepare an ambulance. The mysterious figure mentioned the address of the incident. Soon the sound of sirens sounded closer and closer. The police immediately arrived at the location, moving quickly. They exited the car and headed straight for Clara and her father. Clara and the others looked at the arriving police officers. Clara was confused as to why the police were there and who was reporting what had just happened so quickly. Sophia panicked and tried to run away. However, the policewoman immediately grabbed her and handcuffed Sophia's hands. To the back, everyone! Shouted a police officer in charge, making room for the medics examining Papa Clara's condition. Clara felt as if the world was collapsing. She got up with the help of other villagers. Her heart was empty, with only fear and anxiety. She kept looking at her father, who was lying stiff, hoping for a miracle. Still crying until her eyes were swollen. Let me go! Sophia's screams as she was taken into police custody made Clara look at the woman who killed her father. She smiled and felt satisfied that Sophia had been caught. Punish that woman! She killed my papa, Clara shouted. What are you doing? You can't just arrest me. I'm innocent. I don't know anything. Sophia continued to scream, thrashing about, trying to break free from the police's grip. All the evidence is clear. You can't dodge it anymore. One of the police officers said firmly. We have footage that reveals everything. Sophia stared in confusion. Recordings? What recordings? Who recorded them? Tell me who it is. Everyone there, including Clara, heard Sophia's question. They looked at each other. Clara felt confused, her heart wondering, who could have this recording? Until Clara looked around her, she didn't suspect anyone. Everything seemed normal. The police were silent and gave no answers. They forced Sophia into the patrol car. Come on, you have to bear all your evil deeds. Clara, with eyes full of tears, could only stare speechlessly. It broke her heart to see her father, who was still unconscious, being taken by the medical staff to the hospital in an ambulance. Clara followed him to the hospital. On the other hand, she felt her confusion growing. Who had helped him? Who had recorded the incident and sent it to the police? Clara could barely stand up. Everything had happened so fast, so unexpectedly. Just lost her mother, and now her father was seriously injured. What could be worse than this? Her tears broke out again, this time more anguished, more wrenching. Her world seemed to be crumbling. Arriving at the hospital, Clara's papa's body on a gurney was pushed by the medical staff into the emergency room. Clara still remembers clearly that her mother was declared dead in that very room. Now her papa was struggling between life and death there, and Clara was not allowed to accompany him. Please, doctor, let me in. I want to accompany my papa, Clara begged the medical staff. I'm sorry, miss, you'd better wait here. Let us do our best for your papa, said the doctor. Clara nodded weakly as the doctor entered the room. Clara paced back and forth in front of the door, crying inconsolably as she prayed for her father's salvation. God, heal Papa, don't take Papa away from me, God. I just lost Mama. What will become of me if Papa also goes after Mama? Clara's body went limp, and she sat on the cold hospital waiting chair. Hang in there, Papa. Hang in there for Clara. Time went by for a long time. Clara eagerly awaited news from the doctor about her father's condition. However, she was afraid that something untoward might happen, as her heart was pumping so fast. Suddenly, footsteps approached. Clara turned her head and saw a man who suddenly appeared in front of her. Clara looked surprised and reflexively stood up when she saw a familiar figure. Blake! Blake, the man, was now standing in front of Clara. Clara, how is your papa? Don't know yet. Papa is still inside, Clara replied. Clara, you need to calm down, Blake said softly. Everything will be fine. Clara looked at him with a confused look. You? Why are you here? How did you know that my dad was hospitalized? Blake sighed and said, I called the police. I recorded the incident and sent it to them. When I heard that your mom died, I came straight here and hid behind a tree when I saw your fight with Sophia. Clara paused, her mouth wide open, shocked. You did that? Why are you helping us? Or did you actually come with Sophia and plan all this to get back at me? Blake shook his head. I came alone, Clara. I didn't know Sophia was coming either. I can't just keep quiet, Clara. I know who Sophia is and I know what she does. I can't let her hurt you any further. Clara was still confused, her brain trying to digest all of this. Why are you helping us, Blake? What do you want? Blake looked down for a moment, then lifted his face. Because I care about you, Clara. I care about your safety. And I want us to be together again. Clara looked up at him with red eyes, her tears still falling. I can't, Blake. Blake stepped closer, trying to calm Clara down. I understand. This is all very hard. But you have to know, I'm here for you. We can get through this together. You should thank me for helping you and come back to me. Clara shook her head. Thank you, Blake, but as for going back with you, I can't. Blake felt his heart breaking. He wanted to put his arms around her, but Clara pushed him away. Don't, Blake. Don't come near me. Blake was silent and disappointed, but he didn't give up. Clara, you owe me a favor. If it weren't for me, Sophia would still be running around like a criminal. Clara gave Blake a sharp look. How could you force me to come back when my father is in critical condition and my mother's grave is not yet dry? You're wrong anyway. If you still wanted to be with me, there's no way Sophia would have gotten angry at the funeral and said that you still loved me and I was accused of ruining your relationship. Just so you know, Clara, I regret letting you go and I actually still love you. I regret choosing Sophia. It turns out she cheated on me with a fellow model and did adult scenes. It's happened so many times and she's been evasive. I can't be with her anymore, Blake explained. Now Clara knows why. It's none of my business, Blake. Leave me alone, I can do without you. But Clara, go away. Clara yelled and cut Blake off. Clara, please. I know I was a jerk. I ended things with Sophia. I want to come back to you. Blake was unyielding. Despite being kicked out by Clara, he continued to plead. Blake's voice trembled, and Clara's eaves showed regret. He stood there, his posture slumped, as if the weight of his actions had finally come upon him. I've been so blind, Clara. You were right all along. I chased the wrong person and let you, the only person who really loved me sincerely, go to waste. There is no one like you, Clara. His words stabbed Clara like a knife. Clara could feel her chest tighten, but still, she stood motionless. Blake wiped her eyes, her hands trembling as they covered her face. Then in a low, desperate voice he said, Clara, please. I know it's too late, but can't you give me one more chance? One more chance to make things right. Clara roughly wiped away the remaining tears on her cheeks. Blake, love is not about what you say but about what you do. If you love me, you didn't cheat on me in the first place. I've made up my mind, and if you really care about me, you'll honor me. Leave me. Blake. We're on our own. You should know. Love isn't about forcing someone to stay. Love is about letting them go, even when it hurts. If you love me, you'll step aside and let me live my own life. For you, go back to your adventure in search of true love, and my advice is that you don't do the same thing I did to other women. It hurts a lot, Blake. Blake looked at Clara with a fiery determination that Clara could not ignore. Clara, I won't give up on you if you don't love me now. I will win you back. I will prove to you that I am the man who deserves you. Clara didn't answer. His words felt hollow to Clara now. He had said the same thing before over and over again. Each time, Clara waited for him to change, to prove that he would be there for her. But time and time again, Blake let her down. Our conversation was over where the door to the treatment room opened, and the doctor came out with heavy steps. Doctor. Clara rushed over, voice trembling. The doctor looked at her with a look of profound sadness. Clara, I'm sorry, he said slowly. Your papa cannot be saved. His condition is too severe, so we tried our best. Clara felt the world instanter stop. The words were like a bolt of lightning, shattering her hope. She felt the air around her suddenly choked, and the scenery around her spun. Her head was foggy, and instantly her legs felt weak. Before she could say anything, her body collapsed, falling unconscious on the floor. Blake, who was standing beside Clara, swiftly picked up Clara's unconscious body, carrying the girl out of the hospital to her car. Her eyes were full of anxiety. Wake up, Clara. Arriving home, Blake brought Clara inside, placing her body on the sofa. Clara slowly woke up, her eyes opened slowly, and her gaze focused on the surrounding space. However, the first thing she saw was her father's coffin at the door, ready to be taken to the cemetery. A deep sense of sadness crushed Clara's heart. "Papa!" Clara's voice broke, her tears bursting forth. Tears streamed from her swollen eyes. Blake approached and sat beside her, putting a gentle arm around her shoulders. "Clara, you have to calm down and let go." However, Clara could not contain her sadness. She stood up and limped towards the coffin. With trembling hands, she opened the lid of the coffin and saw the face of her father, who was lying stiff. Clara's cries grew louder, her voice full of sadness. "Papa, why did you leave me?" Clara roared, her body falling beside the coffin. She squeezed the white cloth around the coffin hard, hoping to wake her papa back up. Blake stood behind her, no longer knowing how to comfort Clara, who was devastated. "Clara, you're not alone. I'll always be here for you." A few hours later, they went to the cemetery. Clara stood in front of her father's newly prepared grave while Blake stood beside her, trying to provide support. Next to her father's grave, her mother's grave was also visible, where they rested together. Clara gazed at the freshly dug ground, and calmness came slowly. However, along with this feeling, there was an inexpressible emptiness. "Papa and Mama," Clara murmured, "now you two are together." Blake looked at her with a heavy heart. "You'll be strong, Clara. I'll be right beside you." Shortly after the funeral, Blake's cell phone rang. He looked at his phone screen, his expression changing as he read the many incoming messages. "Sophia has been sentenced to death," Blake said quietly. Clara looked over, her face flat. "Sophia? She deserved it," she replied. Over the next week, Blake continued to approach Clara, capitalizing on her moments of sadness by staying by her side and comforting her. However, none of that meant anything to Clara. She tried to stay strong, but there were times when Clara couldn't stop crying. Over time, Clara got fed up with Blake's behavior. She gently spoke to the man to make him understand. "Blake, I really thank you for helping me all this time, but I'm sorry that I can no longer be with you. Please understand me, Blake. Don't add more to my life with your presence. Go away, I want to live in peace. I know this might hurt you, but by having you here, you're hurting me too, Blake." Blake looked down deeply. A few moments later, he raised his head. "Fine if that's what you want, Clara. I'm going to go, you take care of yourself. All you need to remember, I still love you this second and forever. If you need anything, you can call me and I will always be there for you." Clara nodded and smiled a little. She wasn't sure if Blake would continue to love her, especially since other women quickly tempted Blake. In the end, Clara moved away. Life had taken her far out of town, leaving behind her hometown, now a sad memory. It was hard, but Clara knew this way she would find peace. Clara lived in a simple apartment. Living alone was more comfortable. She found a small job in the city and began to navigate the world alone. Sometime later, Clara heard from old friends that Blake had gone bankrupt, fallen into poverty, and lived miserably in a small rental house. For Clara, life went on, and slowly, the pain in my heart began to diminish. 2 years have passed since Clara left the past behind. Clara found someone who made her believe what it means to fall in love again. That man showed Clara affection that felt genuine and love that was real. Something Clara had never gotten since being with Blake. Clara also loved him very much. As Clara looked at him, she realized that she no longer had any doubts this time. Clara is sure that he is the one who will accompany Clara forever. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.